Hello everybody, I am AngryBird, back with another update. So I just had to cover this one. Steel Division 2, Smart Orders Explained. So it goes into more depth, or Eugene go into more depth on Smart Orders. Smart Orders is a brand new tactical tool in Steel Division 2, allowing you to offload unit micromanagement to the AI. So, let's dig deeper. Smart Orders, when will they be released? They'll be launched alongside the upcoming Death on the Vistula DLC that we covered the other day. And that is being released on the 17th of October. So that is part of the History Pass, which some of you who have pre-ordered, you may have already got the History Pass. If not, you can purchase that to get all the new divisions. But Smart Orders is it's a free update anyway. You don't have to own the history pack to get Smart Orders. So let's just get this in the right position where we can see everything. So what do Eugene say? Smart Orders is a new tactical player tool in Steel Division 2 which offloads certain aspects of unit micromanagement to the computer. It means that you can select a group of units, give them a smart order, and watch as the AI takes over, while taking into account various tactical elements as it executes the order. Right, okay. So how does it work? Smart Orders comes with a new information panel. We saw this the other day, and it allows you to give automated commands using basically the different commands in this panel. Right, so we've got the 5 commands being shown at the moment. Possibly in the very distant future they may add more, but these are the 5 that are here at the moment. Seize, hold position, defensive fire, counterbattery, and fire at will. So if we go through further, so what can Smart Orders do? Well, it's an excellent way to have the computer take over control of part of the battlefield, such as a flank, or providing counter-battery fire while you are concentrating on more important sectors of the front line. You pick the units, give them a smart order, and let the AI do the rest. Now, this is genius. The computer will carry out the commands, stringing together various tactical considerations into one overarching automated order that is continuously updated until the objective is reached. This is amazing, really. When you dig deep into this is seriously good stuff. So, for instance, the AI will take into account the group's composition and number of units, the surrounding terrain, the cover available, if there are roads which can be used for fast movement, visible enemy units, their relative strength, and more. I mean, this is like seriously good AI mechanics going on here. I mean, this is stuff that really, when I first came across Steel Division, I mean, even back in Wargame, when I very, very, very briefly played that, this is the kind of stuff that you're thinking, hang on, why, I wish that you could just do this. And these Smart Orders are doing that kind of thing. So, this is the good bit when we talk about the different Smart Orders. So, one thing I will say is, look at this GIF. I don't like that little S icon. I don't like the S icon for Seize. I really dislike that. I don't know what it is, but it just doesn't really fit in well with the theme. So I don't like this. It's a very minor thing. I'm being very picky there, but I don't know. I've got to be picky about something. So, different types of Smart Orders. We were not happy with designing just a general offensive or defensive order. So, yeah, if you're talking in basic terms about what a company might produce, a basic offensive order and a basic defensive order is like what you'd expect. So if someone was releasing this content, that's kind of what you expect as the first line. So Eugene, they're not happy with that, and they're going beyond that, which I just think what they're doing with these smart orders is really good stuff. So what are the different kinds of orders? Well, let's run through them one by one. So seize, give the seize order to a selected group of units, and they will automatically try to capture the targeted location, engaging any enemy near the objective. Having dealt with their threats, the selected units will automatically switch to the hold position stance. So I think there's actually a GIF down here that shows it in action. So this shows the siege order in action. So the person will have highlighted all of these units and given them a seize command for this flag, right? So we can see here that the AI is taking control of these units, and it keeps giving them continuous orders to take this objective. I mean, this is, when I first saw smart orders, this is what I hoped, but I didn't actually dream that this is what it would be. I mean, look at the changes in the orders. So we've got the PTRD squads or PTRS squads down here. So they're relatively minor movements there. I mean, the AI is not doing much, but I guess eventually it's going to move them into the buildings. If it was me, I'd probably put them on the edge of the town here, so I would expect that. But the tanks, you can see that initially this tank's got a movement order to there, and then it's updated it probably like 2 seconds later to further on. And I expect it to keep going up along this road until it sees an enemy, basically. The same with this tank. It's recognising that there's a road here going through to the objective, so it's using the road. It's not just attacking across here, although, you know, you could argue that actually you've already got one tank going up this road, so this one could attack move across this this open ground here. But, you know, it's doing the most efficient, it's taking the most efficient route. The infantry is obviously all pushing upwards. These two infantry are pushing towards the target, and then this infantry and the PTRS squad are slowly pushing down. So, you know, but the thing is, it's constantly updating. So this GIF is what, like 2 seconds long? So, you know, am I to assume that sort of every 2 or 3 seconds the AI is giving them new commands over and over again? I mean, it's quite possible, I guess. That's what it looks like. And if it is, that's pretty damn good. I mean, hopefully it won't be too taxing on people's PCs and computers. But yeah, this is not what I expected. This is more than what I expected. So I expected, and if you look back at my earlier videos, I said that this could be something that they did, but I didn't expect them to do it. I expected them to just give an attack move into various locations around the area, and then the units go off and do that. But to continuously update the orders, that is pretty damn good. I'm really excited. And I mean, you can imagine that allocating this on this flank here. So this looks like, what map is that? This looks like one of the Slutsk maps, if I remember right. Yeah, I can't remember which one it is though exactly. But you could allocate this set of units to seize that flag while you're doing something completely different on one of the other flanks, and you can tell that by the front line that there's no units around, so it's quite safe to allocate a seize position or a seize command, and then, as we know in the explanation, they'll switch to a hold position, so they'll hold that flag. So, you know, while you're microing on the other flank, and you know there's not much here because you can see it from the front line, why not use those orders and get the... I mean, look how many orders that's being given here. If you had to individually micro each one of these orders, it'd take you 30 seconds to do. So, and then it's doing it again 3 seconds later, and then again 3 seconds later. So, yeah, this is it's really good stuff. I did not expect this whatsoever, and I'm really excited now to get my hands on this and, you know, see really how effective it is going to be. Right, let's look at the next order. Hold position. So, let's highlight. give the hold position order to a selected group of units, and they will defend their current position to the best of their abilities. Using the surrounding environment and available cover, they will relocate depending on the tactical situation, for instance, move around to face an enemy flanking attack. So this is kind of what I thought it was going to be. So you give them a holding position, I guess similar to that seize command, on the right place, and basically the units all take up defensive positions, and the AI knows good defensive positions. It knows to put AT guns on the edge of forests, in heavy cover, looking out over the line of sight terrain. It knows to put infantry in heavy cover and buildings. It knows to put like snipers and heavy machine guns in, advantageous positions. So that's what I'm imagining it's doing. It's just going to locate units into defensive positions that are good for those particular units, and then if maybe one of them's not in the best position, you can probably relocate that yourself. But that way it probably saves you from microwing 10, 12, depending on how many units you've got. It saves you putting those individual micros into every single unit, and then you can quickly give them that whole position command and then go off to the different flank. I think this second part about they will relocate depending on the tactical situation, for instance, move around to face an enemy flanking attack. Now, I don't think this is going to be as intelligent as it reads. So I saw one of the comments in the Steel Division Discord chat, and the person was kind of worried that some of the skill might be taken out of the game with these smart orders, and I can understand the concern, but I don't think, this part here about relocating to face an enemy flanking attack, that is not going to be like serious. It is no way going to be as effective as you could micro it yourself. So the computer may move an AT gun so that it's got better line of sight over the attacking enemies. I think that is what this means. But the AI is never going to be as efficient and as good as you are microing the units. And we know that to be a fact because you can beat medium AI and you can beat hard AI by playing the game. Once you understand how the AI works, especially, you can. It's not like the AI will destroy everybody. A human player will always beat the AI. So I wouldn't be too worried about that, and I wouldn't read too much into this line. I think basically that means it will, if the enemy suddenly start coming from a different direction, it will move AT guns to face that direction and, other units in that way. Okay, so next one, the fire at will. So the fire at will order gives a selected group of units the freedom to target and engage any spotted enemy within their range of fire. So this one's kind of strange, because I'm not fully understanding it based on this description. So, the fire at will order gives a selected group of units the freedom to target and engage any spotted enemy within their range of fire. I don't really understand that. How is that different to what they would normally do? But hopefully Eugene will give more details on fire at will. I can understand maybe it's different to efficient shot. So efficient shot's kind of the opposite of this, because it isn't free to target and engage. Well, it is free to target, but not to engage spotted enemy. It's dependent on the settings that you give it. So I don't understand based on that exactly what that's going to do. So maybe they'll come back hopefully they will come back and explain that. Counterbattery, this is the big one. This is the one causing all the stir. This is the one causing all the questions. How good is Counterbattery? So let's read the description. Give the Counterbattery to a selected group of artillery units and on their own initiative will fire at enemy artillery pieces, but strictly in a counter-battery role. This means that your artillery units, mortars and howitzers will only target known or detected enemy artillery positions. No more idle time for your howitzers and mortar crews. Oh my god! This is amazing! Oh, this is so good. So, let's break this down. So, you select your artillery pieces and give them a counter-battery order or role. So basically, they are going to be the counter-battery artillery pieces. They're not going to do anything else. They're just going to counter-battery. So, you can't have, unless you could give all of your artillery pieces counter-battery, but at some point you're going to want them to target something. So as soon as you want them to target something, you can select them and then give them a specific target order, on some infantry in a building. And then you're going to need to give them the counter-battery order again for them to continue. So there is still, there is some micro, but in between those times where you're not using the artillery yourself to target specific targets, they will, on their own initiative, fire or return fire, i.e. they'll counter-battery enemy artillery pieces. Okay. So, what does that mean? That means they're using up a lot of supply. It also means they're not your mainline artillery pieces. So if you've got your Phase A mortar and you put it on counter-battery, it is going to be out of rounds straight away. As soon as the enemy fires, their own mortars or artillery, your mortar is going to go on counter-battery and it's probably going to lose its ammunition pretty much immediately. So I can't see too much Phase A counter-battery because it costs, in terms of 1v1, I'm talking about 1v1 now, it costs too much supply, and you want to be using your mortars particularly or your artillery in Phase A on the targets that you select, because there's not much on the ground and you want to take specific targets against things that are against high value targets in Phase A. So I can't see counter-battery really being that useful in Phase A. Where it's going to come into its own is Phase B and C. And if I'm honest, I think that means that the people are going to buy dedicated artillery for counter-battery and for counter-battery only. However, saying that, in 1v1, it's expensive to do that. So, you're going to have to be efficient with the use of your artillery pieces. And perhaps that means, as I've said, putting counter-battery orders, still having them in a control group as you would normally. So the only thing I usually use control groups for is my artillery. So I usually have my mortars on control group 1 and then my big artillery pieces on control group 2. And then if I'm ever counter-battering, as soon as I see the enemy artillery fire, I'm hitting 2, I'm selecting those mainline artillery pieces and I'm targeting in fire at position command on those artillery, on the enemy artillery, right? But you could just give them a counter-battery order and that will do that without you having to micro. But at the same time, you've got to think, if it's doing that more efficiently, so all the time while I'm doing it, I am going to miss the enemy firing, so I'm not going to counter-battery. But if the AI is doing it automatically, that means it's going to use a lot more supply, a hell of a lot more supply than what you are. So expect to see those support slots being taken up by a lot of supply. And in 1v1, it's expensive to bring in dedicated artillery pieces for counter-battery and supply. It's very expensive. So it will be interesting to see how this is used, like how effective this is used. Will it mean that more artillery pieces are in the game? I think in 1v1 it actually won't mean any change. I think it will be exactly the same and people will look to use the current amount of artillery they've got, but just more efficiently. However, I do think in team games, especially all the way up to 10v10, that actually it's difficult to... I'm thinking way ahead now. I mean, I have not played this, but what I imagine is that actually a lot of the artillery in 10v10, this is going to really help 10v10 and big team and 3v3, 4v4, because artillery is going to be less efficient. First of all, if you're putting artillery pieces on counter-battery, you're not putting them to target, mainline infantry, mainline tanks, your frontline, the enemy frontline units. You're putting them to target the enemy artillery pieces. As soon as they fire and they cause suppressive damage to those enemy artillery pieces, they are less efficient. So they are going to be worse at targeting your own frontline units. Now, they might also have counter-battery dedicated artillery units of their own, which will counter-battery your artillery. So throughout this entire time is making artillery pieces less efficient because they're constantly getting suppressed and bombarded, and possibly some of them are being taken out. So actually, I think in team games in 10v10, I think I'm going to go out on a limb here and predict that counter-battery is going to seriously help arty-spam in 3v3, 4v4 and 10v10. I'm going to predict at this point, so this is going to be interesting what actually happens, but my prediction is that as a result of this counter-battery order, there's going to be less arty-spam in 10v10. Now that is a scary prediction, very scary prediction. I have no idea whether it's going to come true, but we'll see in a few weeks' time. Right, let's stop talking about counter-battery, because I could go on for probably a full hour on what I hope about, talking about counter-battery. Let's talk about defensive fire. So defensive fire is the second smart order focused on helping you manage your artillery forces better. So I had no idea this was coming. This was not something that I expected that this defensive fire was to do with artillery. So what does it say? It says, this command gives your artillery the freedom to fire any target spotted close to the designated position, a great way to support your offensive operations. So basically, this means that you can designate a key position, and anytime a target is spotted close to that position, and my expectation is when it means close to that position, it means within the radius of the artillery damage radius. So when you select an artillery piece and you give it a fire at position command, there's a little radius or a little circle that shows where the shots are going to land. So my expectation is that when it says to fire at any target spotted close to the designated position, it means within that circle that around the position that you've designated. Okay. So what does it mean? It means that basically you can select your artillery and pre-give it a good location, and it will just keep firing over and over again at any enemy spotted in that location. This is interesting. I can't predict how this is going to work because it's quite inefficient, really, in a way. If you give it a location and then you don't keep your eye on it, it's going to run out of supply quite easily. Again, a big tax on supply. So, is this going to help out? Perhaps what this is good for is if there's an AT gun in a certain area, but you couldn't quite remember exactly where that AT gun is that just killed your tank, right? And it's gone stealth again. So you give an artillery piece the defensive fire order into that location, and then the next time that AT gun fires, your artillery is going to target it. I can see that being a useful option for the defensive fire order. I think the other thought is to target anti-air units. However, I'm not sure how this any target spotted how this works. Is this a visual spot? Does that target have to be visually spotted and there an icon be above it? So when you're targeting anti-air pieces, a lot of the time when your plane flies over the area, you can spot with your visual eye where the anti-air fire is coming from. But those units aren't officially spotted by your units. Okay, you're just spotting the fire. So does that count? My guess is probably not, but I kind of wish it would be, because I feel like this defensive fire order would be a great order to take out anti-air units, ground-based static anti-air units. And actually, that's a really key aspect to the game right now, is that AA is, for me, is pretty powerful, and what it's meaning is it's shutting down a lot of airplay. It's not really giving you variable options in the air, because you kind of, anything with low resilience at the moment, it just gets shot down so quickly. So you're relying on heavy resilient bombers, things like IL-2s that, can tank anti-air shots, and things like Ju-88s that can also tank anti-air. It's quite, mundane airplay at the moment. So the counter to anti-air units is usually artillery, but because they nerfed artillery in the past, because it was overbearing, they reduced the aim time for a lot of it. That kind of actually buffed anti-air, because the counter to anti-air artillery got nerfed. So, I would love this defensive fire option to help out counterbatterying in a way anti-air units. But, I don't actually think it's going to be useful to do that. I think it's going to be more, my guess, I've not played it this way, but my guess is it's going to be more at targeting key units. Maybe also the heavy tanks as well. You think IS-2s and King Tigers and Panthers, actually artillery, it can be quite useful at harassing them and even taking them out. So if you give a defensive fire order where all the tanks are, then anytime that tank's spotted, your artillery's firing on it. So potentially that's a possibility as well. So it will be interesting how this defensive fire order develops and what it's used for. Because right now, Counterbattery is it's the key. Right, let's scroll past. I've shown this GIF already, so I'm not going to come back to it. So, let's go. What's coming up next? The Sturm Tiger. We discussed that. Look at that beast. And the way that it fires, it kind of makes it look like it's a direct fire weapon. So maybe, there's been some debate with a few people in the comments talking about the range. Is it direct fire? Is it going to be indirect fire? This kind of makes it look a bit more like a direct fire unit, but the range, technically I'm reading, is like 5 kilometers. So that suggests more artillery. But at that range, I imagine the accuracy is like so bad that you probably won't even use it at that range. So yeah, be interesting how that's going to develop. Finally, before we end, mod tools coming soon. I know there's a lot of people that love the mod tools, so it's coming soon. New tutorials, we mentioned that before. The first historical DLC, bringing new divisions, that's Death on the Vistula, new units, new maps, new historical battles, new army general campaign, new. I'm so excited. It's all coming. Launch on Death of the Vistula. Cannot wait. October 17th. Oh, yes. Right. I am leaving it here because I'm running out of time. I've got to get off quick before this Bandicam kicks me off. Right. Thanks very much for watching. Post your comments. Post your prediction for Counterbattery. Will it mean more arty spam? Will it mean less arty spam? Tell me. Post your comments. Right. Thanks very much for watching.